Welcome to Distance Learning Program on Cloud Computing by Inubus. In this chapter, we'll be covering the AWS Amazon Web Services products under deployment and management category. We have 4 different products under management and deployment. They are CloudFormation, CloudWatch, Elastic Beanstalk, and IAM, also known as Identity and Access Management. Let's take a look at what is CloudFormation. AWS CloudFormation enables us to create and delete related AWS resources together and just with a one click, and that happens in a single stack. And they are JSON template powered. We write a JSON script from the scratch in which we indicate the resources, the AWS services, in other words, that we need to run or that we need to inside, or otherwise the services which we require inside our CloudFormation needs to be mentioned in the JSON script. And the resources are allocated automatically based on the JSON script which we give to the CloudFormation. And based on the script, the resources like EC2, S3, RDS, Elastic MapReduce, all these resources can be launched through the JSON script on a CloudFormation. And it is easy since it's based on the EC2 which a developer or a technologist makes. So based on that script, it generates the services. So it's easy to manage since we are aware of the services that are being launched through our script. And it is key pair enabled. We create a key pair before we proceed with our CloudFormation. And with this key pair, we access the resources that are allocated or created using the JSON script in the CloudFormation. For example, the key pair is used for accessing the EC2 instance which is launched in the CloudFormation. And it is scalable. The resources that are allocated using the script in the CloudFormation are scalable and they are secure. As we know, CloudFormation is a technique that allows us to launch the required instances or services in a single stack. That's what is CloudFormation. And since we are using the same services or products available from AWS, the security of all those services will be available even we launch that through the CloudFormation. Now let's check how it works. As the figure indicates, we can see the JSON script in which we indicate the services or resources that are required, and we give the JSON script to the AWS CloudFormation console, and according to this script it will be launching the mail servers, the MySQL servers, and the load balancers, and also the RDS and also the S3 bucket. If we mention these resources to be launched with the script, those resources will be launched. And all these instances or all these resources will be launched in a single stack. And the benefit which we get while using CloudFormation is that it happens in a single click. Instead of wasting time or spending time on starting and stopping these resources one by one, we can go ahead and start all these instances in a single go. So it is easy and it's fast as well. Now let's go ahead and create and launch, and let's configure a CloudFormation under AWS Management Console, and let's check out how can we work with the CloudFormation. We log into our AWS Management Console, and under Deployment and Management category, we click on CloudFormation, which takes us to the CloudFormation console. In this, we can create a new stack for the CloudFormation. But as we discussed before creating the CloudFormation stack, we need to create a key pair for accessing the cloud stack. So let's go ahead and create a key pair for accessing the resources that are getting created in the cloud stack environment. So let's go back to the EC2 dashboard, and we go to the key pairs on the left hand side under the networking and security category, and we can see two different keys are mentioned over there. Let's create a new key pair for our demo purpose. So let's go ahead and create a key pair in a bus. And we click create, and the very next moment it's getting created, the same will be downloaded to your local computer. So we have created the key pair, which is in a bus. Now we go back to our CloudFormation tab. Here we go ahead and click on create new stack, and asking for the name with which we create the formation, the cloud formation. So we give InnoBus Cloud, and as we discussed before, we can go ahead and enter, or we can upload a template, a JSON file, or else we can use a sample template that are available under the AWS Management Console. So let's go ahead and select a WordPress blog sample template here, and let's see what is there under advanced options. Under advanced options, you can see the Amazon SNS, which is nothing but Amazon Simple Notification Services. If we want to enable notifications in this CloudFormation, we can go ahead and check out enable this notification. So we are not going to create a notification here since we are just creating a sample demo here. So let's go ahead and click continue. It says it's too long, so let's go ahead and give a small name, and let's click continue. Now it's asking for the database root password. As we know, the WordPress, it needs the database to be configured to work. So we have to enter the MySQL database root password over here. So I'm going to give a root password, and we can mention the instance type. I'm going to mention a T1 micro instance here, and we can create an option that I acknowledge that this template may create IAM resource. IAM is nothing but an identity and access management console. So we click and we acknowledge that, and we click continue. Now, before we completing this, we can see that we will get a review before we complete the whole task of creating the AWS CloudFormation. Now we go ahead and click continue, since all the information that we have furnished seems to be correct, and it started creating the CloudFormation. So it says it's in progress. So it may take several minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, or 3 to 10 minutes might require to create and complete the CloudFormation. So let's wait until it completes the created in progress to running state. Now we can see that the creation is completed and our CloudFormation is up and running. So let's check out some information about the cloud that we have just created. So in the normal first description page, we can see the stack ID to which our cloud is connected, or the stack that we have just created. We can also see the description, the outputs, how to access our cloud, which is the InnoBus Cloud. We can go ahead and click on this value to open our CloudFormation that we have just created. I've copied the link. So let's go ahead and click on new tab and let's open it. Here we go. We got the WordPress which we have deployed in our CloudFormation. So let's go ahead and give a title, which is InnoBus Cloud. Let's set a password. we need to confirm the password again. This is the usual WordPress installation step which we do here, and let's give an email address. And we click WordPress. Otherwise, let's set this title as Demo Cloud Universe. And we click on Install WordPress. So let's wait until it completes. It has been completed, and now we see that the WordPress has been deployed in our cloud infrastructure. Now let's log in. We can log in as admin, and let's enter our password. And we log in. So same as how we deploy our WordPress into a Linux or a CentOS based server, same thing happens in this dashboard as well. So this is how we deploy an application into a cloud formation. Now we have selected a sample WordPress format here. We can do the same with our own template or our own code to deploy our application into the cloud using the cloud formation. What is the advantage is that if we are doing it manually, we need to start the EC2 instance, and we need to install Apache, MySQL, and the PHP if you require PHP. And after that, we need to deploy the WordPress into that, and after that we need to configure the WordPress. So in a normal EC2 infrastructure, but when it comes to the cloud formation, the difference is that we go ahead and upload the template that we need to deploy in our cloud formation. So all the required resources like S3, EC2, and the resources which we require inside EC2 like Apache or MySQL, all those resources and services will be created automatically, that too in a single stack. That's a benefit that we get when we use the cloud formation. Now let's go back to our AWS Management Console tab, and we can see some details here. As this, we can see the server details, the instance ID, and what's the security group. We have mentioned the Innobus Cloud as a security group which we have created, and also we can see some details like events. If we reboot or if any kind of patch update happens on our cloud formation, those events will be indicated under this events tab. It indicates the password, and the passwords are nothing but the DB password that we have given while creating the cloud formation, and also the instance type which we have selected as T1 micro. And this is how we go ahead and create the cloud formation stack, that too in a single click. Now let's go ahead and check out what are the advantages of cloud formation. The advantages are the cloud formation is flexible. As we have seen, we can choose from social networking platform or social networking template to the normal WordPress blog template from the sample template that are available under the AWS Management Console, or else we can upload our own JSON script which we write from the scratch for deploying our application into the cloud formation. And it is easy to administrate. As we have seen, we just need to enter the key pair and then we go ahead and create the cloud formation. We don't need to do each and every resource. We don't need to allocate or add any resources for the cloud formation. The administration is pretty easy when it comes to cloud formation, and it is template oriented. A developer, let it be PHP or a Java developer who is well versed with JSON, can go ahead and write the template from the scratch and can create his or her cloud formation in a single stack for running the application. And it has automatic resource allocation. As per the JSON script that we upload or as per the sample that we select, the resources like S3, EC2, load balancer, or even Elastic MapReduce, all those resources will be allocated automatically based on the script or the template that we give. And it is fast. While comparing cloud formation with starting the services like EC2, S3, and Elastic MapReduce individually, the time taken to start all those services under the cloud formation is pretty much less. as we are doing that in a single go. So all those services will be started parallelly and will be connected under single security group, which makes it secure as well. Now let's check out what are the other AWS services and products under the deployment and management category. We have Elastic Beanstalk, which comes under the AWS deployment and management category. Same as like CloudFormation, Elastic Beanstalk is a software, in other words, a service available from AWS for easy and quick deployment of applications into the cloud. You deploy your application, let it be a custom application or a common application. You can deploy the application directly into the cloud using Elastic Beanstalk. And it is a platform as a service. It works as a platform as a service. And it automatically deploys the application which we allocate with our Elastic Beanstalk. So, and the deployment can be like different versions. You can go ahead and upload your first Beanstalk application into the cloud, and later if you want to change the version, you can go ahead and upload different versions and you can deploy the later versions into your cloud. And it is also a self-privilege to other associated services. As like CloudFormation, in Elastic Beanstalk also it allocates the services like EC2, S3, RDS. All those required resources will be automatically leveraged based on the requirement. And as of now, AWS Elastic Beanstalk supports PHP with Apache on a Linux box. At the same time, Java with Tomcat on a Linux box. Both are available in 64-bit as well as in 32-bit category, and also it supports the same under Windows Server as well. And time taken to complete the Elastic Beanstalk application deployment is less when compared to deploying the application into a normal EC2 stack. Now let's go ahead and launch an Elastic Beanstalk under our AWS Management Console, and let's see how we configure and create an Elastic Beanstalk in the cloud. Now we log into our AWS Management Console and we go to Elastic Beanstalk under the deployment and management category. Here it says how we want to create your application that needs to be deployed in Elastic Beanstalk. It is like you can select a sample application which will be by default based on the OS and the application which are running in the operating system, in other words in the Amazon machine image. And as we discussed before, it shows we have got Linux in 32-bit as well as 64-bit with Tomcat and with PHP along with Apache as the web server, and it also gives 64-bit Windows 2008 R2 server. So let's select a Linux running with PHP 5.3 as 64-bit for creating our first Beanstalk application. So let's click on Launch Application. So that's it. We have created an Elastic Beanstalk in AWS Management Console, and how it works is like we create or we select the operating system and the required programs like PHP or MySQL, which will be installed by default in the Amazon AMI that we select. And what's the benefit for Elastic Beanstalk is that it is designed particularly aiming at the beginners who want to learn the cloud deployment and deploying the application into the cloud infrastructure. That's the main aim of using Elastic Beanstalk. So we just, as of now, it supports only PHP with Linux and Java and Tomcat with Linux and also Windows operating system. It has not started Nginx kind of web servers, but soon we can expect that from AWS. And now we have created our first Elastic Beanstalk, so we need to wait until our application gets deployed. And how it works is like now it's creating Amazon EC2 instances with Amazon EC2 load balancer to meet the incoming traffic. So let's wait until it completes the total environment to be ready and started. Now we can see that our environment, the default environment, is now ready. And when we go to our Elastic Beanstalk console management screen, we can see the overview when we have launched, and when we click on the environment details on the left hand bottom, we can see the URL to access our Elastic Beanstalk application that we have deployed. And right now we haven't deployed much. We have selected the operating system and the PHP as a programming tool on that. And we can also enable, or we can see the monitoring which are enabled under our Elastic Beanstalk. We can see the CPU utilization, and also we can see the network bytes in and out from our Elastic Beanstalk, and also the latency that happened while accessing our Elastic Beanstalk application. And the events, it says what are the different services that has been started along with our application that we deployed in our Beanstalk. And we can see the EC2 instance and its instance ID which we have launched while creating the Beanstalk, and also the security group and also the load balancer. All those will be listed under the events in default environment of our first Beanstalk application. Also, we can also check the same over there on the top under the Beanstalk category, and also we can see what are the versions that are running on our deployment. And when we click on the versions tab, we can see that we have only one version that we have deployed. If we want, we can go ahead and deploy a new version in our Elastic Beanstalk. We click on the version and we say deploy new version, and we click on deploy new version for deploying our application into the Elastic Beanstalk cloud. Now we have completed deployment, and let's go ahead and check the application which we have deployed in our Elastic Beanstalk under AWS Management Console. Okay, we can see that now we have clicked on the link to reach to our Elastic Beanstalk deployment. We click on that link and it takes us to the page which shows the application. It says, congratulations, since we have deployed our first Elastic Beanstalk application into the cloud infrastructure. This is how we create and launch an Elastic Beanstalk for an application. Now let's go ahead and check what are the advantages of using the Elastic Beanstalk. Now when it comes to AWS Elastic Beanstalk, the advantages are it is easy to begin. They are designed and custom tailored for beginners to start learning how the deployment works in the cloud infrastructure and how to deploy the application into the cloud infrastructure without launching different applications for different services. All the applications or all the required services and resources will be launched in a single click while we create and launch our Elastic Beanstalk for deploying our application. And why we say the advantage is that it's impossible to outgrow, because when we deploy our application into Elastic Beanstalk, it has got EC2 instances as well as load balancers to meet the incoming traffic, and also it uses the technology of auto scaling. So based on the number of traffic or based on the request, it automatically grows up and down to meet the incoming request of our application. For example, if the number of traffic which comes on port 80, it seems to be high than the normal, so based on the application settings, the auto scaling will automatically increase its settings and compute privileges to meet the incoming request. And it gives complete control. As we discussed before in EC2, it gives root privilege to the user for complete access into his server. And it is flexible. We can go ahead and select the type of instance that we want to launch in Elastic Beanstalk. Let it be a small or a large instance, or if we are running on a small instance, we can go ahead and change the instance type into large instance if we are expected to have more number of users or traffic or number of transactions through our application, which is deployed in Elastic Beanstalk. And it is secured since it uses the services that are available across Amazon Web Services, and the communication or the transaction between the resources will be through the SSL tunnel, and that too in the encrypted format. So it's always secure and it is reliable. How it is reliable in the sense it uses the Amazon EC2 along with load balancers and auto scaling. So our application will never go down until unless we stop the application or a zone failure. So it is reliable when compared to any other application deployment technology that we use in the cloud infrastructure. So that's all about the Elastic Beanstalk. Now let's see what's other AWS services and products under the category of deployment and management. Okay, there is another tool or services offered from AWS, which is CloudWatch. What CloudWatch does is like it helps you to monitor your server which is running in the AWS infrastructure. Let it be any service like EC2, RDS, Elastic MapReduce. Using the CloudWatch, we can go ahead and monitor and analyze our services that are running under the AWS infrastructure. It tracks the services. How it tracks the services in the sense the services like CPU utilization or memory utilization, even the disk utilization, all those will be tracked, can be tracked using CloudWatch, and it is scalable and flexible. We can go ahead and scale our CloudWatch. It gives us to privilege to make the watch based on the timing. If you want to make the timing based on 1 minute, 2 minutes, or even 5 minutes, we can go ahead and make the custom watches like that, and scalable up to any number of instances that are running in our infrastructure can be monitored. And it is notification enabled. It watches the infrastructure, and based on the custom notification type or based on the alarm that we set in the CloudWatch, based on that will send out the notification to the user. For example, on an event of more than 80% of CPU utilization, the notification will be called and will be sent as an email to the email address that we mentioned while creating the CloudWatch. And there are two types of CloudWatch, and one is basic and another one is detailed. In the basic monitoring, it is absolutely free since we can monitor our services on an interval of 5 minutes. And if we choose detailed monitoring, we can go ahead and monitor our services based on the interval of 1 minute, which helps us to monitor the server without any individual or a isolated server to monitor the services. That can also be integrated into the Amazon Web Services using CloudWatch. And it gives a graph-based output. We have seen the same CloudWatch monitoring using the cloud while creating the Beanstalk as well as CloudFormation. We can go ahead and those are integrated with the CloudWatch is integrated with the services that we launch in AWS services, and they show the result in the graph mode. Also, we can download the result in an Excel format or PDF format. It also shows the user-friendly version as a graph-based input based on timing and based on the access which we set. Like for if it's CPU utilization, the percentage will be 1 and the time will be listed, and we can see the CPU utilization in the graph format while using the CloudWatch. Now let's go ahead and create a CloudWatch in our AWS management console, and let's see how it works. Now we go ahead and log in back to our AWS management console, and we click on CloudWatch under the deployment and management category, which takes us to the CloudWatch console here. So here we can go ahead and create an alarm where we can go ahead and create a CloudWatch to monitor the services. As we discussed before, we can select the type of creating the CloudWatch. If that needs to be an average of the time that we mentioned, which is a period of 5 minutes or 1 hour or 1 day. And we can also set the average if that is minimum within the last 5 minutes or maximum within the last 5 minutes or the sum within the last 5 minutes. And also the metrics which we can select. We can monitor DynamoDB, we can monitor EBS volumes, we can monitor our EC2 instances that are running, and the auto scaling group. We can monitor our elastic load balancer. The health can be monitored, elastic cache can be monitored, and also the RDS, the database system, can also be monitored. And let's go ahead and create a monitor for monitoring our EC2 instance. And while we select the monitoring of the service which we need to monitor, it shows the different monitoring that we can perform. Okay, we can see a number of types, like we can monitor the CPU utilization, the disk read bytes, read outputs, and write outputs, and the networking, the bandwidth, the network in and out, and the features like, and also we can monitor the same for other instances that are associated with our instance. So in this case, let's go ahead and select the CPU utilization here, and let's go ahead and click continue. Now it's asking for a name with which we can identify our CloudWatch. So let's give Inubus, and the description is demo, and here we set the alarm. What is the threshold that we can set? The alarm is nothing but based on this alarm the notification will be sent. If you set greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, greater than or less than, if you set greater than, and we give around 70% in last 8 minutes, so if the CPU utilization is more than 70% in 5 minutes, that will be sent, that will be considered as the threshold, and the alarm will be generated and the notification will be sent to the user. And we can create the email address here. We can send it as CPU on of EC2 instance, and the email address which we need to mention for creating our CloudWatch, to which the notifications will be sent out from the server or from the CloudWatch console. Okay, we go ahead and click on add actions, and also we can send the notification to multiple email address. We can go ahead and set the comma separated email address here. If we want that to be sent to more than 1 or 2 people, we can set it as a comma separated email address can be added into that. And also we can set multiple alarm settings while by creating another email topic here with another subject line, and we can add that action and we can set the notification. Alright, now we got an error here and it says that should not contain some alphanumerical characters. Alright, we edit that without space, and now we go ahead and click on continue. Now in this page we can see the review of our CloudWatch, to which instance ID we are creating this, and what is the threshold that we have set, and what are the actions that will be performed on an event of alarm. And we are going to create the alarm, and we close it. Now we can see that they have insufficient data. Why? Because the instances that we have given to monitor does not have any application that are running in the instance. So if we are giving if you are setting the CloudWatch for running a running instance, it will be monitoring our CPU instance and other instances like other features that we mentioned in the CloudWatch, and based on an event or an incident, that will send out the notification to the email address that we mentioned. Now here I have started the instance for which we have created the watch, and now we can see that the instances are being measured based on EC2, and we can see the different CPU utilization for the instances that are running in our account. It shows the CPU utilization went up to 100%, while the CPU value, the utilization value was 100%, and the instance ID was this. So same as like this is what the graphical user interface which the user gets for monitoring the CloudWatch. The end user can view the performance or in a graphical format for the time which is mentioned over here. If we want to monitor the last 1 week, we can go ahead and set it as 1 week. We click on 1 week on the right hand side of under the time range stamp, and it will pop up with the CPU utilization for these instances for the last 1 week. So this is how it shows the CPU utilization, that for sometimes the CPU utilization went to 56.9%, and it was low at 21%, and it was even low at 1.67%. So this is how we view the utilization for the 1 week of our instance, and we can see when exactly it went down, and using the logs in our server we can also understand why our server utilization was down. Using this, we can also analyze our EC2 instances. How we can do that is like, first we check the CPU utilization, and we know at what time the CPU utilization goes up, and if that happens on a routine basis, we can go ahead and check our logs of our EC2 instance or the server in which we are running the application. So based on the logs, we can see at what point of time the CPU utilization goes up, and what is the service or what is it makes the CPU utilization to go high. We can also use CloudWatch to monitor the services, but also we can use it to analyze some kind of events which happens on our server. To find the root cause of a high CPU utilization and all, we can use the CloudWatch. Now let's go ahead and check out what are the advantages of using CloudWatch. The advantages are, it is simple, it's easy to create a watch and to monitor the EC2 instance, and that can be used to monitor the CPU utilization, memory utilization, and disk usage, etc. And also the advantage that we get is like there is no server overhead. Usually what we do is like we run script on our server to monitor the services and the disk usage and the CPU and memory utilization, where the cron job will be running in the background apart from the services that are running for our application. So it is an overhead for our server. So while using the CloudWatch from AWS Management Console, we are not giving overhead to the server, since the monitoring is being done from separate compute units. And it is real time. It monitors the server in the real time, and notifications will be sent in the real time based on the email address that we create or that we mention. And it creates instant custom alarms. We can go ahead and create custom alarms based on, as we have seen, we can go ahead and create a detailed monitoring or a basic monitoring. In detailed monitoring, we can go ahead and set the levels, like at particular threshold value, this has to be done. This email has to be sent to this email address as an alarm. So these custom alarms can be created with the CloudWatch, and all the critical services are basically covered while using the CloudWatch. The CPU utilization or memory utilization, as well as the disk utilization, which are the most critical services that needs to be monitored in any web service or any web server that are running an application. And it is inexpensive. As we have discussed before, we can see that the basic monitoring is free, and it monitors the server for every 5 minutes, and the detailed monitoring is not free, but it can be used to monitor the server for every 1 minute. And while comparing to an individual server running Nagios or Zabbix to monitor the server like these services, AWS CloudWatch is pretty much inexpensive, as we don't need to allocate a separate hardware and configuration of that hardware to monitor our servers. Now let's go ahead and check what is the final product under the deployment and management category in AWS, which is identity and access management. Using the identity and access management, we can give privilege and permission to individual users for accessing the services that are running in AWS Management Console. We can set the permission and roles for each user for using or accessing the services like EC2, S3, RDS, Elastic MapReduce, Elasticache. All these services can be allocated to a user or to a user group while using identity access management. In identity and access management, we have user groups as well as users. We can create user groups, and we can set a permission or privilege level to that group, and we can add users to that group. So we can assign the services that can be accessed by a group, and we can add user to that group based on the requirement of running or giving permission to that user. And there is no additional cost for using identity and access management. It's a service given from AWS for ease and secure management of your services that are running in AWS Management Console. And while using the Identity and Access Management Console, the critical informations like access keys and secret keys are always isolated. The IAM user will not have access to the credentials like secret key and access key, with which we can create and launch any services under our AWS Management Console. And we can have a URL based access while using the instant identity and access management. We can have a particular URL created for accessing our console, which can be user defined, and it gives much high level control of accessing the services when we distribute our AWS Management Console across a number of users like developers or testers or even technology consultants. Now let's go ahead and set up identity and access management in our AWS Management Console. Now we log into our AWS Management Console and we go to Identity and Access Management under Deployment and Management category. And now here we get the Identity and Access Management Console. Here we can go ahead and we can see that we have groups and we have users, and also we can have password policies. Let's look at these things deeply. Let's go ahead and create a group here. So let's give the group name as consultants. Let's click continue. And here it's asking for what are the privileges or permission that has to be set for this particular group. We can give administrative access, we can give power access with which the user can see the services or the access, like different resources can be accessed using this group. And what's the difference between the administrator access and power user access is that with the administrative access, the user in the administrator group can go ahead and access Identity and Access Management Console in AWS Management Console. So if the user is just a power user, he or she won't be having access to Identity and Access Management Console in AWS Management Console. And if it is, we can also give read-only access to the user, and we can give access to the user like CloudFormation access. We can give access like storage access only for storage gateway, and access only for CloudFront. We can give access to CloudWatch. If you're having all our web services or applications running in AWS Cloud, we can give the system admins the access to WebWatch, the CloudWatch access, and we can give full access or read access based on his or her designation. We can isolate or we can separate them between accessing the CloudWatch. With the read-only access, the user can see the metrics and cannot add a new watch, whereas with the full access they will be able to add a new watch. And the same happens to AWS DynamoDB and EC2, Elastic Beanstalk, Elastic Cache, Elastic MapReduce, and also AIM full access can also be given to a particular user, and we can give access to AWS RDS. So as we discussed before, it describes all the services that are available under AWS, and under all category, all the services offered by AWS will be listed over here. So if we have a user that user should have access only to the S3, we can set it like that. And if we want the user to be accessible to many of the group, we can create a group and add these services, like we can add Route 53, and we click continue, and we create the group. In this case, the user in this group will have access to AWS Route 53, and we can see what are the permissions that we have set. Right now we have created the group. Now we can go ahead and add the user to that particular group. We can go ahead and create a user consultant 1, and we click create. Now we click close window. And now why it's asking for is like we have created the access key for this particular user, which is not required by this time, so we click close window. So the user consultant has been created. Now we go back to the groups and we select consultants, and we can add users to this group. We click consultant here and we click add user to group. Now the user is now added to the use group, which is Route 53. Now let's check the password policy that we can set. Okay, we can set the password policies here, how many number length or how many characters should be there in the password. We can give the number that we need, and also it gives the features like uppercase should be there, lowercase should be there, and it should be alphanumerical, and they should change the password. That can also be implemented using this password policy. Now let's go back to the user and let's set a password for the user, which is consultant1. Now we go to the permissions, we go to security credentials, and we can see the password is not set. We click on the manage password and we give a custom password to the user. So let's give a password. Let's confirm the password and let's click apply. So now the password has been applied to the user. Now let's go ahead and log in as this user, and let's see whether we can log in as this user, and we can see whether the resources that we have listed in the group can be accessed or not. So before accessing that, the console using the user, we need to know the URL. We have created a URL here. We can also create new URLs, and now let us copy the URL to access the AWS management console. Let's open a new tab. Let's paste the URL. Now we need to sign out from this console before we access or before we log in as the user in the same browser. So let's sign out. We have signed out, and now let's go ahead and log in as the consultant1 user, and let's see whether the Route 53 is getting listed in this category or not. Now we log in as the user, which is consultant1, and we type in the password and we log in. Now we have logged into our AWS management console, and we have added the user to the group where the user can go ahead and access Amazon Route 53. So let's check whether we can access Route 53 or not. The user has access to Route 53, and let's click on the create hosted file and let's see whether the user has the privilege. Yes, the user has the privilege to create actions or perform actions under the Route 53 tab. So the privileges has been set. So we also need to check whether the user has access to other services or not. Let's go to Amazon EC2 tab. Let's see whether we can perform or we can launch an EC2 instance as a user, and let's click on the launch instance, and it says continue, but we can see that running instances, we don't have authorization to view or launch or perform actions in this AWS console because our user has access only to the service, which is Amazon Route 53. So that's how we create user groups and users in AWS management under Identity and Access Management console. And we have also seen how to set the privileges in AWS management console in IAM service. Now let's go ahead and check what are the advantages of using IAM. AWS Identity and Access Management Console gives the advantages like limited access control. As we have seen before, we can set access to particular service, to a particular user, or to a particular group. So we can limit the access to the user for which he or she needs to be accessed based on his or her profile. Let it be a developer. We can set the access to S3 as well as EC2. Meanwhile, the developer does not require access to CloudWatch. So if there is a system admin, we can set access to the system admin to access CloudFront as well as CloudWatch for detailed monitoring. And it provides enhanced security. We can have enhanced security in the sense we can set multiple levels for password, and also we can enhance the security by differentiating the user as well as the group for limiting the access between different services. And it provides seamless integration with AWS services. We have seen that we can create a group and we can add the user to that group, and we can set the group for permission or privilege to access particular or any individual Amazon service. So it provides seamless integration with almost all the AWS services, and it is reliable. Since it provides multi-level authentication, it is reliable. And also another feature is like AWS provides multi-factor authentication. We can have a device which generates a particular random number based on a sequence, and we can integrate that device to our AWS Identity and Access Management. And based on the number and the sequence generated, the user can log into the Identity and Access Management console. So the multi-factor authentication, which seems to be one of the important advantages of using IAM in AWS management and the activities which has to be performed on AWS services. So that's all about the services under deployment and management console from AWS services and products.